Texas and Oklahoma get added, and this round of realignment essentially started when we learned in 2021 that Texas and Oklahoma were ultimately headed to the SEC. And what this does is create just some bangers of games because you are spreading Texas and Oklahoma across the SEC schedule, and you're getting a change in the SEC scheduling format at the same time. They have also ditched divisions. So the genesis of this show is a commenter yesterday saying, I'm glad that my school, Tennessee, he said, will be playing Texas and Oklahoma more, but I wish they would not have to play LSU less. And I said, no. They're going to play LSU more. They may play South Carolina less. They may play Kentucky less, but they're going to play LSU more because divisions are gone in the SEC. Now, currently, the SEC is staying at 8 conference games. They may eventually move to 9, but they're staying at 8. There would be 1 fixed opponent. This is why I think they're going to move to 9, so they can have 3 fixed opponents. And then everybody else you would see twice every 4 years. So, like, if you didn't have that team as your cross-divisional opponent, so we're talking like, if the old Florida-Auburn rivalry that used to get played every year that stopped, Tennessee and LSU, Georgia and Texas A&M, like you only saw those games like twice every 7 years. You will now see them twice every 4 years at minimum.
And that's a huge bonus to this whole thing, right? Like there's a part of me that with the realignment and the expansion and the way that the tectonic plates are kind of shifting, there's a part of me that's on one hand, I'm stoked to see Georgia, Texas. Like that's going to be dope. But the other part of me is like, man, I really loved college football that I grew up on. I love, seeing those rivalries every, that were consistent. But now the fact that we're going to get some of these teams playing more, like you said, seeing those teams twice every 4 years, everyone's going to play everybody. I think that is one of the really positive byproducts that traditionalists can look at and say, okay, that's going to be a good thing. Like seeing LSU and Georgia play more, that's going to be a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, and the divisions were good at first and actually like created some new rivalries. So I don't think a lot of people realize before 1992 when the SEC split into divisions, like Florida and Tennessee hardly ever played. It happened to be that Florida and Tennessee in the 90s were the 2 best teams in the SEC. And so suddenly their divisional game that they played every year became this massive event. And they developed a rivalry because of that. And so that happens. I still want to see them move to a situation where they can have more than 1 fixed opponent because Texas and Oklahoma, yes, absolutely need to play every year. But Texas and Texas A&M need to play every year too. So We're going to get that in 2024 at the end of the season. That is probably the new SEC game that I'm most excited about, is that rivalry being renewed. I got to talk to you about Prize Picks, the most fun daily fantasy platform on the internet. Sign up for Prize Picks today. Use the referral code Andy. They will match your first deposit up to $100. So you deposit $100, they deposit $100, and then you get going. Basically, you are playing against the number. It's not daily fantasy where you're playing against other players or a bunch of sharks. You are playing against a number that they have set. And so let's say you're doing college basketball. Let's say there's a Caitlin Clark is playing the Iowa basketball player who just set the NCAA's all-time scoring record. There'll be a number for Caitlin Clark's points. It's going to be a high number because she averages a lot of points. So it might be like 24 or 28, depending on the opponent. You're going to decide, is she going to score more or less than that? That's 1 square. You start with as few as 2 squares. You can go up to 5 squares. The more squares you play, the higher the potential payout. If you're really sure about something, you might want to just go with 2. If you want to let it ride, you can go up to 5. So download Prize Picks today. You can play any sport that is competing right now. We use the term sport kind of loosely there because it could be esports. There's some gamers on there. They've done Power Slap. That's one of my favorites. But also the NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball is coming out. There's a lot to work with at Prize Picks. There's something new every day. The board changes every day. So sign up for Prize Picks. But you've got Tennessee going to Norman. You've got Oklahoma going to Baton Rouge at the end of the season. Georgia going to Texas, you mentioned earlier. These are going to be so much fun.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. And I mean, how many times, Andy, too, over the course of the last decade or so have we watched a team, whether it be Alabama or it be Georgia, and they sort of run the gauntlet through the regular season, and we say, well, they didn't play this SEC team. They didn't have to play, Bama didn't play Georgia in the regular season. How would that have changed their college football playoff aspirations or national title aspirations? I don't think we'll see quite as much as that in this new format. I think we'll see a lot more with these teams having to play each other more consistently year in and year out. It won't be, a perfect, okay, they had the most difficult gauntlet every single year, but I think we will have a better gauge for, the litmus test of each team and how good they are from a roster to roster comparison, because it will genuinely be the Hunger Games when it comes to these teams making the SEC title and then playing in the college football playoff.
And I do think draw will matter, whether it's the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, the ACC, all that matters now, because now we've seen this in the ACC already. They did it. They did it last year. We're going to see it in the Big 10, in the SEC, and we're going to see it in the Big 12, where it is going to be top two. Now, the Big 12 started this years ago, but it is going to be top two. And yes, draw will matter. The difference with the Big 12 is they had a true round robin up until last year. And they obviously now are going to have 16 teams, and they're not going to have a true round robin either. So with the SEC, if you look at the schedules, and we've done some deep dives on the show, and we'll continue to do those. If you're new to the show, then by all means, go back and look at some of those deep dives into LSU's schedule, into Florida's schedule, into the Texas schedule. I think Ole Miss and Tennessee probably got the nicest draws in the SEC. I think Nebraska probably got the nicest draw in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State got a better draw than Michigan got, but both of them still going to have to deal with some tough games. But we're going to talk a lot about that, and especially as the season goes on. So thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.